Dave, here we are, start of the season, just a couple of days away now. What's the feeling around the place going into opening day?
I suppose there's always an increased excitement, if you like. The fact that although you try and make pre-season games as competitive as possible, it's the first time that 3 points are up for grabs, and that means it seems a little bit more real than maybe it does in the lead up to that. But it's important, I suppose, from our perspective, to stress that it's the start of a minimum of 51 games for us, with lots at stake, and the first couple of months certainly are filled with fixtures. I suppose we have to use reflection and hindsight to try and guide us and know that an important start can be pivotal. So hopefully we can get that at the weekend.
Since we last spoke, you obviously wrapped up pre-season with games against Blackburn and Preston, two completely different teams, but two good performances really.
Yeah, and like I say, good signs in terms of opposition we're up against. They are different games, refereed in a different way with different amount of stoppage time, and I suppose gave us an insight as to what the real games may look like. But to be able to compete, like you say, at that level with two different 11s over the course of an evening and an afternoon, and get positive endings to our pre-season, if you like, was really good, and puts us in a good place. Like I say, looking forward to this week and the detail that is, and then ultimately kicking off at the weekend at 3 o'clock at Edgley Park.
And when you speak there about the new style of refereeing that's coming in, obviously the added time is the one that everyone noticed during the weekend, but the yellow cards as well, referees really cracking down on that side of the game. How much does that change things from your point of view, really?
It's different, so change is always going to bring some unease around what things look like. In terms of the games, yeah, longer, and need to get used to that. That's probably an easier thing to get used to than the almost zero tolerance perspective referees are going to have on dissent to a certain degree. I'm not sure it is dissent, but questioning things or asking questions, and how frequently, how many people, and how often you might do that. The big thing will be the delaying of restarts, and that could look pretty messy in the first few months, or the first month certainly, and could see some decisions made that affect teams early in a game of football. And we've got to make sure, like all the other teams potentially will, that you're aware of that. I suppose habits that you may have had for a long time all of a sudden need to change very, very quickly or instantly, in order that you're not picking up yellow cards, and most importantly not picking up second yellow cards, which hinders us in the fact that we go down to 10 men. We suffered of that at the start of last season, and in a different way this year we've got to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Friday and Saturday was obviously good practice in that regard. When you look back at pre-season as a whole, how satisfied are you with the work that you did, not just on the pitch but off it as well in the transfer market?
Yeah, delighted with where we're at. Like I say, I've said previously, we've still got some injuries carried over from last year that aren't ideal, because the players that are missing or not 100% fit are important players to us. But we've managed to strengthen in areas we wanted to strengthen. Again, this summer transfer window, from our perspective, still has 4 weeks to run, and we'll still look at opportunities to strengthen in that period, and I suppose in some instances be reactive to what may happen, whether that be interest in some of our players, whether that be injuries, whether that be form. We have a month now to sort of make sure that when it does shut on the 1st of September, that we're in a good place to see us through till January with enough depth and enough quality to have a positive first 4 months of the season, and make sure that when January ends that we can really kick on towards the back end of the season.
Two loan signings came in last week. Louis Barry, who you described as your top target in that position, and Jayden Richardson as well. What will those guys offer you going forward?
But both pace and dynamism. Jayden can play higher up, but I think I spoke previously about that position down that right hand side. Certainly with, certainly with Maka and his I suppose availability over the past couple of seasons meant that if he was out, we had to change a little bit how we play down there. Noilly does a great job for us, but he's slightly different in terms of that profile, something we didn't have. So now we've got two competing down there in terms of what they offer. Louis, anywhere across the front really, is a different type. We were very good and have been very good over the past seasons in terms of a team that crosses the ball an awful lot and are efficient in terms of doing that, in terms of goals we score and create. But can we have a different way of playing? Can we provide different challenges to opposition? We don't really have dribblers and people who can go past players in order to unlock a defence or change teams that are maybe banked in a little bit. Louis certainly provides that. Like I said, we looked at where he was last season. His intent to dribble is brilliant. With that becomes risk and potentially becomes failure at times because they're not all successful, but he keeps doing it. And that was something that really excited us. And will certainly add a different string to our bow in terms of how we attack against different setups.
I mean, it was something we spoke about towards the back end of last season a lot, really, in terms of that finding a different way of playing, particularly in the absence of Carl Woodson when he picked up his injury. Was it always that preference to go down that different route in terms of finding those different profile of players rather than just going out and bringing in a like-for-like kind of player?
No, I think, like I say, you want to give yourself as many options as possible. I think from my perspective and from everyone's perspective, in terms of you'd love to be in a situation where, with the current injuries we've got, it would be very easy to say, oh, Woods is out until sort of maybe October, go and get a replacement for him. Miles is out to October, go and get a replacement for him. Stret's out for the season, go and get a replacement for him. That's not viable. People may not think it, but we do have a budget that we have to stick to. And if players are coming in, then players need to go out. And it's again a challenge, and sometimes a difficult challenge, in order to what profiles you look for. So you look at Woods, for example. It's not a real convincing sell to try and bring somebody in that may have opportunities at the start of the season, but as soon as maybe October comes, then all of a sudden our main striker, if you like, from last season in terms of that focal point comes back into the building and back onto the grass, and where does that leave them? So are you looking at a younger profile? There'll then be an argument that says is a younger profile better than currently what we have in with us that can do that job. So loads of questions are asked. We've looked at lots and lots of different things. Ultimately, regardless, those dribblers, if you like, people that could go and unlock defences, be that with a bit of trickery in terms of looking to penetrate, or be that individual 1v1 stuff, was something we wanted to add and we'll still look to add. I think we've done that, not just in off the side areas, if you like, in Louis' scenario, but in terms of down the sides as well. So if opportunities come up to add more of that profile and it will improve us, then we'll definitely look at it. What we want to try and do is have people, I suppose, to manage the squad size, have people who can play in numerous positions and give us real options to change the way we play, even within our preferred setup.
In terms of injuries, Sars obviously missed the 2 games last weekend. Friday night, Crosby and Paddy sort of limped off the pitch towards the end. Are they all in contention for this weekend?
They're all in contention. We'll have to make late calls on two of those 3 without going into too much detail. But again, we are just, I suppose, carrying little bits that are hangovers from last year, certainly. And certainly in Crosby's case at the weekend, the fact that the game ultimately becomes longer and he edges close to covering, well, certainly over 13.5k in terms of what he covered on Friday. We're gonna have to look at that. And again, in normal circumstances, we'd be in a position where we'd make lots of changes. We wanted to try and, like I say, get as many of the players close to 90 minutes as possible, because we need to go into this weekend knowing that we're not going to have to make subs based on players not being able to last. That 90 minutes all of a sudden is going to become closer to 120 minutes. So in terms of our game management, that's going to be better. our ability to look after the ball is going to be better, because teams now aren't going to be able to manage games, if you like, with the ball off the pitch, which, when you look at what the foreseeable past in terms of what football is, a lot of game management has come when the ball's not on the pitch and not on the field of play. If referees and officials now are controlling that, it becomes more difficult. So there is a different dynamic, and we all have to see how that works.
Just looking ahead to the season as a whole now, Wembley was obviously a difficult day for everyone, difficult for you, difficult for the players. And I think that the cliche that sometimes gets thrown out when teams lose in the playoffs is about a hangover effect the following season. How do you go about ensuring that's not the case?
By being as consistent as possible, and consistent as we have been over the time we've been here and the time that I've managed. And you try and freshen up the group, which we've done. You try and bring in quality, which we've done. And you try and, again, re-energise and re-motivate players. Now, with that as a point in fact, if players, and hence why we spoke about this straight after the game in the change rooms at Wembley, regardless of results, you want to harness and remember that feeling, good feeling or bad feeling. And the best players and the best managers and the best coaches will use experiences, good and bad, to make themselves better and improve. And we all have to do that. We spoke as soon as we came in this pre-season. For us to stand still next season, we need to improve. If we're going to finish where we did, then you look at what other teams have done within the league. The league becomes more competitive, so we've got to get better. And for me, speaking personally, that's a huge motivation and a huge point that I want to prove, and I certainly feel that for the players. I suppose the proof will be what the first 6 weeks looks like, and hopefully you will see a motivated group of players that know how close they came last season, and I suppose in lots of instances learn how to win football matches at League 2 level as a group. That group largely remains the same, and I've got real belief that we can go one step further this year.
Yeah, and in hindsight, I suppose you do look at those first 10 games as probably just giving yourself a little bit too much to do in terms of clawing it back. I think from 10 games onward, you picked up 8 points more than any other side in League 2. So how much emphasis are you putting on hitting the ground running this time round?
Yeah, listen, you always try and hit the ground running. I think it's easy to look in hindsight back at what you could have done better. Be that all things were said the other day at the fans forum, be that the draws that we had. I think we drew 4 out of 6 games. Be that sendings off, be that 19 occasions where we hit crossbar or post, be that 50% of missed penalties. There's loads of data and stats you can look at. Ultimately, you judged over 46 games. We can go all the way back to Stevenage in the second game, if you like, and look at it and say, well, if we didn't concede that 96-minute goal to lose the game 2-1, we'd have finished second based on all of the other results. That wasn't the case. So we are where we are. Like I say, we try and be better. Yes, of course, if you can start the season really, really well, not only do you pick up points, you build momentum, you build confidence. We went through the opposite last year in terms of making mistakes and being punished for those mistakes, punished really severely in a step up in level. So we learned from that. We started again from scratch, if you like, and got ourselves really, really close. What you can look at though, if you really strip the performances back, is I don't think we were a massive amount different in terms of what we looked like in those opening games to what we did after 40 games. We made poor mistakes and were punished for them mistakes. We cut that out, and our, like say, defensive record and organisation from those bits onwards, like say 10, 11, 12 games onwards, became a real, I suppose, benchmark that we stuck to, which managed and enabled us to win a lot of game of football and put really good run of results together, which got us to where we got to. It makes obviously sense that if we can start that from game one and try and put that run together over 46 games, it gives you a much better chance.
Just finally on Gillingham, really, obviously had a very strong second half to last season, really made the most of the January transfer window and the investment that came in, invested again this summer. Are they a side you expect to be up there this season, challenging for promotion?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, they invested really well in January. We had 2 different games against them last season, both resulting in draws. But they've, like I say, reinvested again through the summer, and I expect them to, yeah, absolutely be in and around it. I think we start off certainly within our first 10 games with playing against the teams that you'd expect would be up in and challenging. So I think it gives us a good guide of where we're at. A good guide as to what the opposition looks like. There's no tougher way to start in terms of playing Gillingham, who, if you look at, like say, from January onwards, I'd suggest in terms of points collection, they were very close to where we were, and they're probably looking at it and saying if January for them is the start of the season, then ultimately they get promoted as well. So 2 teams that will be expecting to be up challenging near the top, who want to start the season on the front foot, and hopefully we're the ones that come out on the right side of the result of the weekend.
All the best for the season ahead, Dave.
Cheers, thank you.